My building revoked a permanent guest credential tied to my wife's account. That revocation happened the same week I moved my name off our joint lease. The notification didn't come to her. It came to me because my phone was still listed as the emergency contact on the property management system. I hadn't touched that setting yet. I was waiting until the paperwork cleared. The subject line was dry. Credential deactivation. Policy trigger. No emojis, no explanation. Just a timestamp and a unit number that matched ours. I called the management office to confirm it wasn't a mistake. The woman on the line pulled up the record and said it was automatic. A guest credential had crossed a threshold and locked itself. She didn't know why. She said the system didn't tell her motives, only patterns. I thanked her and hung up. My wife Erin and I had been together 11 years, married for 7. We lived in a mid-rise downtown with controlled access, cameras on every entrance, and a system that tracked everything. We both worked normal hours. She handled client accounts at a design firm. I managed operations for a logistics company. We had no kids, no pets, no shared debt beyond the lease and a car. On the surface, things were quiet. No fights that stood out. No dramatic shifts. We didn't share calendars, but our schedules overlapped enough that it never felt suspicious. We weren't glued together, but we weren't distant. That's why the notification mattered. It wasn't about feelings. It was about a system acting without asking anyone's opinion. I logged into the resident portal. I had admin access because my name was primary on the lease. Erin had full resident privileges, but not admin. That was just how we set it up when we moved in. No reason at the time. It saved a few minutes. The portal showed one permanent guest credential associated with our unit, issued 3 months earlier, used 46 times. The system flagged it because it exceeded the allowed number of overnight entries for a guest credential. The threshold was set by the building's insurer, not management. Once tripped, the credential auto-disabled and sent a notice to the primary account holder. The name attached to the credential wasn't saved, just a device ID and a usage pattern. Entries between 10:40 p.m. and 6:15 a.m. Repeated, mostly weekdays. I checked my own key logs. Clean, normal hours, gym access in the mornings, office exits midweek, nothing overlapping. Then I checked Erin's access history. Her key fob showed exits around 8:30 a.m. on those same mornings. Consistent, predictable. The guest credential had entered minutes after her fob on many nights, sometimes before. I exported the logs as a CSV and dropped them into a spreadsheet, lined them up by date. It wasn't random. It was a routine. I didn't confront her. There was no advantage to that. I wanted to know how the system had allowed it in the first place. I emailed the property manager and asked for clarification on guest credential policy. She replied with a PDF attachment. Standard language. Permanent guest credentials were intended for housekeepers, caregivers, or close family. They were not meant for romantic partners or cohabitants not on the lease. Overnight use was limited. The system enforced that. I asked who issued the credential. She said Erin did, through the resident app. I didn't reply. That evening, Erin came home at her usual time. She put her bag down, kicked off her shoes, and asked if I'd eaten. I said yes. She nodded and went to shower. While she was in the bathroom, I opened the resident app on the tablet we kept in the kitchen. It was logged into her profile. She never logged out of anything. Under guests, there was a disabled credential. No name, just a gray icon. I tapped it. The app showed the issuance date and a note field. The note was optional. Most people left it blank. She hadn't. Recurring access. That was it. I closed the app and put the tablet back where it was. The next morning, I checked the building's camera retention policy. Public areas were stored for 14 days unless flagged. I was within that window. I requested footage for the lobby between 10 p.m. and midnight on 3 random dates from the log. I didn't say why. I didn't need to. Residents were allowed to request footage involving their own unit. The files were uploaded to a secure link later that day. The man didn't try to hide. He walked in confidently, like someone who belonged there. He used the credential at the side entrance, not the front desk. He didn't look at the camera. He was consistent. Same jacket, same backpack, same posture. He wasn't a delivery driver. He wasn't maintenance. He didn't badge in with staff credentials. He came upstairs. The elevator logs confirmed it. Floor 12. Our floor. I watched 3 clips. That was enough. I checked Erin's work calendar. She kept it synced to the shared desktop because she liked the bigger screen when planning. I wasn't snooping. It was open. Client meetings during the day. Nothing unusual. But there were recurring WFH blocks on Fridays that hadn't been there before. They started around the same time as the credential issuance. I cross-referenced those Fridays with the access logs. The guest credential entered at 9:12 a.m. on 2 of them. I didn't feel anything sharp. It was more like confirming a shipment arrived where it wasn't supposed to. That night, I asked Erin if she'd changed her work schedule recently. She said yes. The firm was flexible. Some clients preferred remote check-ins. I nodded. That was true. Her firm advertised that. I didn't ask who the guest was. I didn't ask why the credential existed. I wanted external confirmation that didn't rely on her words. The next trigger came from a third party. 2 days later, the building concierge emailed about a package that had been misdelivered. It was addressed to our unit but had been left at the front desk because no one was home at the time of delivery. The sender name wasn't ours. I went down to retrieve it. The concierge apologized and handed it over. He didn't comment. He didn't need to. The package was a small box. Lightweight. No company branding. Just a return address with a name I didn't recognize. I didn't open it. I took a photo of the label and put it back on the counter at home. When Erin came back from work, I asked if she was expecting a package. She looked at the box and hesitated for half a second. Then she said yes. It was for a client sample. I asked why it wasn't addressed to her office. She said the client shipped directly to her because it was fragile. That didn't align with her firm's policy. They had a centralized intake for samples. She'd complained about it before. I didn't push. I waited. The next morning, she left early. I waited 10 minutes and then opened the box. Inside was a pair of men's running shoes. New, size 11. I'm a 9. I put the shoes back and resealed the box as best I could. At this point, I had logs, footage, a package, and a usage pattern. I didn't need more, but I wanted to understand scope. I checked our utilities portal. Water usage had spiked on Friday mornings. Not dramatically, just enough to register as a pattern. 2 showers instead of 1. I checked the smart thermostat history. Temperature adjustments during hours when I wasn't home, minor changes, manual overrides. None of this proved affection. It proved presence. I scheduled a meeting with a lawyer the following week. I didn't tell Erin. I needed to understand options before introducing noise. The lawyer asked for documentation. I sent the access logs and the lease details. She didn't react. She just took notes. She said the lease could be modified. The building would cooperate if there was a policy violation. She said separation didn't require confrontation if assets were simple. I thanked her and left. The confrontation happened 2 nights later, not because I planned it, but because the system forced it. Aaron tried to reissue the guest credential. The app sent a push notification to the primary account holder when a disabled credential was reactivated. It required admin approval. My phone buzzed while we were eating dinner. I didn't look at it immediately. I finished chewing and wiped my hands. Then I opened the notification. Guest credential reactivation pending. I looked up at Erin. She was watching me, not eating. I asked who the credential was for. She said a friend. I asked which one. She didn't answer. I told her the building disabled it because of overnight use. She said it must be a mistake. I turned the phone so she could see the usage count. She went quiet. I asked how long it had been going on. She said a few months. I asked if he'd been in our unit. She nodded. I asked if she planned to tell me. She said she didn't know how. That was the extent of the dialogue. No raised voices, no apologies, no explanations about feelings or gaps or loneliness. I told her I'd already spoken to a lawyer. She didn't respond. I told her I would be modifying the lease. She asked when. I said tomorrow. She asked where she would go. I said she could stay with a friend or family. She nodded again. The next day, I went to the management office in person. I brought a copy of the logs and the policy PDF. I didn't mention infidelity. I mentioned unauthorized occupancy. They took it seriously. Insurance violations always get attention. They said the lease could be amended to remove one occupant with consent. I had errands. She'd signed the separation agreement the night before. It was basic. No drama, just logistics. They scheduled the change for the end of the week. In the meantime, they revoked all guest privileges on our unit. No permanent credentials. Temporary only, issued at the desk with ID. Erin packed quietly. She took her clothes, her laptop, and the shoes. She didn't argue about furniture or dishes. On Friday, I worked from home. The building sent a final notice. Occupant profile removed. I watched as Erin's name disappeared from the resident portal. Her access history froze. Her fob deactivated. At noon, the system updated again. Unit access updated. Single resident. That evening, I heard the elevator stop on our floor. Footsteps approached our door and stopped. There was no knock, just a pause. Then the footsteps moved away. The system had closed.